Hello, friends. I am popping on today to talk a little bit about some DBT skills that can be used when you're having hard conversations or interpersonal conflicts. Okay. As you know, it's really important for me to, around the idea of taking care of ourselves in relationships, to just focus on our own behavior, not on trying to change anyone else, and these are really nice for supporting that goal. So I'm going to share with you an article that lays them out nicely. I will put the link to this article in the description. So these are from the Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Skills Workbook, which I'll also put a link to ordering if you're interested. DBT is one of my favorite things in the world. So I highly recommend it. I actually recommend taking a class and not just going through the workbook yourself. So I'll put the link to my class that I take that I love, and then to another class that's uh, an option as well, both online. Okay, so we're just going to go through these one by one, and we will see that there's some options for when you're in a tricky situation and you want to diffuse the conflict, while still maintaining your self-respect and respecting the other person. Okay, so mutual validation. So this one is about just focusing on that, like, it doesn't have to mean that somebody is right or wrong, good or bad. We can sort of validate, like, you make sense. Um, and we're going to let the other person know that we get it, that we get what they're talking about, but it doesn't have to mean that we agree. So that's similar to like radical acceptance. We're not saying that we condone it or that we agree with it. We're just saying, like, okay, we get it, what you're saying. Okay, so ways to do this are to start with, I understand, and then follow up with on my end. So that way we get to say, like, I hear you, and I have a different experience of it. So it respects the other person and it respects you. An example would be, I understand that it feels scary to take this type of financial risk. You have the right to be cautious. On my end, I would like to make these investments so that we'll have more when we retire. We're both coming from a reasonable place. It's just different. So you're acknowledging that dialectic of, like, you want something and I want something different, and we're both okay. Neither of us are bad or wrong. We just have a different experience. Okay. So that's mutual validation. You can use the keywords of, like, I understand, blah, 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 whatever is their experience, and then on my end, da, 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 and your experience. Okay. Okay, two is broken record. This is one that I find is highly effective for high conflict type people, the kind of people that will get you into circular arguments, and that you may be like, I just can't believe it. I've been talking to you for 4 hours about this same topic, and I feel more confused about it than I did when we started. If you have that experience, I really encourage you to try this. So, for the broken record, you're going to pick a very simple phrase that doesn't explain or debate or answer why or give any sort of more information. You just pick one phrase and you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. You can vary it a little bit, but basically you keep it the same. And it's going to be something just short and sweet. So an example might be, if someone's like, I need you to, come to dinner with me. And you're like, you know, I'm not available tonight. And they're like, well, I just really, we haven't seen each other. We really need to get together, or that's going to be like bad for our relationship. And you just say, like, yeah, I hear you. I'm not available tonight. And then they're going to be like, well, why aren't you available? What are you doing? And what could be more important than this? You can just be like, I'm just not available tonight. And then you could decide something like, you know, um, maybe another time or something like that. And then if you don't want to do another time, then you could just keep saying, I just am gonna keep letting you know that I'm not available tonight. It's a little bit like gray rockish vibe, if you know the concept of gray rock from communicating with people with narcissistic characteristics. And a nice follow up, if they're like still asking a lot of why questions, is some of these things like, I prefer it, this is just how I feel. I like using it just feels right to me, or that's just what I like, which can be uncomfortable because we're tempted, obviously, to defend ourselves and to give more information, prove it, give evidence. Another nice one that I like to use in here that's a little bit like mutual validation plus broken record is I hear you. And then another nice one that I learned from 12 steps is you may be right, which that one you really don't want to use it unless you're really open to considering that they may be right. But it can be a nice one because it just sort of ends the conversation. Okay, probing. This one is really interesting for talking with someone who is emotionally available. But I would offer that if you're talking with someone who is less emotional maturity or intelligence and is not real open-hearted or available, that I would not use this one because it's going to put you into one of those circular conversations if you're in that talking with that kind of a person. So probing is like just learning more about it. It's showing that you're open to understanding their point of view, and it may give you the opportunity to learn something that would help you to clear things up or understand them better. So this is really for when you're with someone who you have an open-hearted situation with, and you would just simply ask, like, tell me more about what bothers you about this. Clouding is a really interesting one, and clouding can be effective for some of these more high conflict type people or people with less emotional resources. It allows you to kind of partially agree, which can soothe them without making it so that you have to agree to everything. And what you can basically do is find where they've used a like always or never or like a big extreme blanket statement that they're making and just tweak it ever so slightly to acknowledge that you agree with part, but you're not agreeing with the whole thing. And this kind of eliminates the like, I won the argument or you lost the argument, right? So if someone's really adamant, like, you never do the dishes, and you could be like, you know what? You are right. There are a lot of nights when I don't do the dishes, and I could see how that could be frustrating, right? Because then you're acknowledging, like, sometimes, but you're not saying, you're right, I've never done the dishes. And you're also not like furthering the argument by being like, that's not true. I sometimes do the dishes. And it's like, well, that's not really helpful in this, at that point because the person's just upset about maybe the once that you didn't do the dishes and their nervous system is causing them to be in black and white and be like, you never have done the dishes ever. And you can um, acknowledge to them, it sounds like you're upset about the times when I have not done the dishes, including tonight. And that sounds hard, right? So these like non-dialectical extremes, you can bring everyone back into the same page by being like, okay, I hear you, and part of what you're saying makes sense, and let's focus on supporting you there. Um, Assertive delay. This one is one of my favorite strategies with interacting with other people. So this is where someone asks something of you and you are not totally sure how to handle it, or you're not sure what you want to say, or you want to say no or yes, and you just don't feel that you have the capacity to endure what might come after that. You can say, I'm going to take a little bit of time to think about that. And you can do that in any amount of time for that delay. So you might be in a conversation and just say, you know what? I'm going to take three breaths and just let that soak in for a moment because my nervous system is pretty ramped up and I want to make sure that I'm thoughtful about my response. And that helps with someone who might be an anxious attachment style. If you take a long pause or just walk away, they're going to be like, what's happening? Right. So you help them by saying, like, hey, I'm going to take a couple of breaths and let this soak in so that I can process and come up with a thoughtful response. It could also look like, hey, you know what? I'm not sure right now, but I'm going to get back to you tomorrow. I personally have a 24-hour rule about spending like any more than like $5 or making any decision that like significantly changes my schedule. I just let the person know that includes agreeing to something or canceling something, unless there's an emergency, obviously. But I let them know, like, hey, I'm going to take 24 hours to think about it, and I'll get back to you. And most people in my life know that I pretty much take 24 hours to think about everything. It helps me a lot because it gives my nervous system the time to calm down and the time to connect with my wise mind and to think through what would be most aligned with my values and takes the pressure off of the real time interaction because I still have my capacity is not the same as my knowledge in terms of like disappointing people or saying no. That's still really hard for me. So I like to support myself in giving myself that 24 hours, and that way I can reach out to my therapist or do some journaling or talk to a trusted friend, and then I can put together a thoughtful response in writing, which I do much better with, or if I need to do it in real time, I could give myself some notes and use some notes as I'm having that conversation. Okay, so try those out. Let me know what you think, and I hope they're helpful. Okay, let's see. Lots of love.